Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. I'm so excited today to have my first ever guest, ever on the Arthritis Life podcast, which at the time was the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. I didn't even think I was going to make it into a podcast in 2019. Sarah Dillingham is back.
Yay!
143 episodes later. Come on down, Sarah. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm very excited to be back. And I'm really impressed that, 143 episodes in.
Oh, no, it's very exciting. Yeah, before we started recording, we were reminiscing a little bit about where our lives were at, in I think it was either late 2019 or early 2020 that this was recorded.
Yeah.
So it didn't publish it till June 2020. But it was pre-pandemic because we were in person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember. Wow, that seems so long ago now, doesn't it?
It really does. But can you just start by letting the audience know, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Yeah, so I live in Washington State, in a town called Snohomish. And although I'm originally from London in the UK, as you can hear from my accent, and I was diagnosed it's got to be like 22 years, over 20 years ago now, with rheumatoid arthritis back in the UK. So I've been a rheumatoid patient for over 20 years.
Same. Yeah, we're in the 20-year club. We need like a badge for that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I know. Yeah.
I survived 20 years of RA kind of thing.
Yeah. Ask me about surviving.
Ask me anything.
Yeah. I love that. We should get t-shirts. We did in more detail. We covered your diagnosis journey / saga in the first episode, but in case someone hasn't checked out that one yet, can you give a little synopsis about how you got diagnosed?
Yeah. So I had a situation where I had a lot of pain in one of my fingers, and I actually thought I'd broken my finger. And so I kind of ignored it, just thinking it would sort itself out, because I was in my mid-20s and you do that sort of thing. And eventually I went to my doctor, so my GP, primary care provider, and I was very fortunate because I said to him, hey, I think I've broken my finger and it's not healing. Can you take a look? And he took one look at it and said, I think you've got arthritis. Wow. And I'm very grateful at the time I wasn't, but I am now very grateful that he recognized it so quickly, because I know that's not a typical experience. I obviously, being in my 20s and having very little knowledge of arthritic conditions, just assumed he was talking nonsense and did the whole, what are you talking about? I'm way too young thing, which, it's obviously quite ironic now.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know. I mean,
Yeah, and he sent me off to, I was very fortunate, sent me off to a rheumatologist, and I got diagnosed straight away. So within, I mean, I had to wait to see the rheumatologist a bit, but I got diagnosed within a few months, and then within 6 months I was straight onto DMARD. So I had sulfasalazine, methotrexate, what else, Plaquenil. I never know if I pronounced that right. Yeah, and so I really would say from initial noticing there was a problem to getting onto medication and treatment was about 6 months, which is really fast.
That's really like a success story.
Yeah,
you're so right though.
Very fortunate.
When you're living through that in your 20s, and I'm assuming you were the only one that you knew that had this, right? So you have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
To you, it's still probably a big it is, I'm sure, a big deal to be like, what, I have to take this medication for arthritis? Isn't arthritis just like one joint hurts and you put cream on it or something?
Right. And I'll be honest, I was so busy having many other adventures that I just went down the road of more or less just ignoring it. I was like, okay, I got some pills, I'll take them, I'll get on with it. And of course, back then we didn't have so much information access with the internet. We didn't have online patient groups, didn't have social media. So, the information I got was basically a leaflet from the doctor that had a picture of a really, really old man on it, like an old man holding a walker. And I actually remember the picture, that's the thing. And I remember thinking, I remember looking at it on the bus home thinking, huh? Like, I don't get why they've given me this. And it just basically explained what the different medications were. So it was great. They gave me that printed information, but it really just didn't click with me because of the way it was presented. I mean, it seems very antiquated to talk about that now, but I just have this super vivid memory of truly just not really understanding what I was diagnosed with, what it was about. I really just didn't get it. And but I am still thankful that despite my own lack of knowledge and, to be brutally honest, curiosity at the time, I was fortunate enough to be assigned medical professionals who just got on the case and got me treatment.
That's such an important perspective to remember, though, that when you're in that stage of your life, so many other things are more important than your health, because you're kind of taking your health for granted.
Exactly.
Right? So like, okay, I guess I have this thing anyway, gonna go focus on the rest of my life. And I really identify with your story, even though it took me longer to get diagnosed. I kind of didn't completely understand what it was until, for me, it wasn't until my first biologic medication stopped working and my body created antibodies to it that then I was like, wait, what is this? What?
Oh, okay.
What am I dealing with? Like, this is like, I thought it was kind of like a solvable problem.
Right, right.
This medicine, medicine, I thought I was just going to take the rest of my life. So I know that was one of the things where we talked about maybe highlighting some of the highlights and lowlights for you of your treatment journey. I know you and I have both been on multiple different treatments. What have been some of the highlights and lowlights? If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. And it's called Room to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Room to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Room to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/Thrive Room with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now. It's for you.
I'm very happy to share. So that sort of little honeymoon period I talked about of the first year of diagnosis, where I could put my head in the sand, that came to a halt pretty quickly, because what I discovered was, after a year or so, maybe it was like a year, maybe it was 18 months, the rheumatoid just got a lot more aggressive very quickly. I don't know why or what happened, but I went from something that was just affecting like a couple of my fingers that I could say not completely ignore, but it was manageable. Suddenly it got really bad, affecting multiple joints. And at the time, this was pre-biologic. So the primary way I was being treated was through increasing doses of methotrexate and also higher doses of prednisone. And, both effective medications, but also for me, they both came with some pretty significant, difficult side effects. So I suddenly started to find myself in this really scary situation. And that was definitely a low light of just constantly going back and being given more and more methotrexate, and, just finding it wasn't quite helping. And I seemed to be getting, just this, like, there was like a year, I think, where I just seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse, and just being prescribed more and more and more. And it all just became very, very challenging. Awful year. I then lucked out in that biologics had been introduced into the US at this point, but they weren't very common in the UK. And I remember, again, very vividly, I was in a medical appointment with a doctor and my rheumatologist and a nurse. And I was actually crying because I was struggling so much with the pain level I was in. I was worried I was going to lose my job, all of that stuff. And after the appointment, I left the room and the nurse followed me out and she said, "Can I have a chat with you?" I said, "Sure." And I thought she was just coming to be nice. And she was coming to be nice. She was very kind. But she also said to me, "We're actually looking for people to do a clinical trial of a new medication. Would you be open to it?" And I just said, yes. I didn't even ask her what it was. I was like, yes, whatever you want to do, let's do it. And I was so fortunate because it was Humira. And I got onto one of the earlier trials of Humira in the UK through the hospital I was on. And that was the highlight. So that's where it went very low to very high. I had a great reaction to Humira. And I was so fortunate that I managed to get 10 years from Humira. And, I would say that's the closest I've ever been to remission. And I never know technically what remission counts as, but, that for me was a remission. I had several years where I was doing really, really great on it. And yeah, just so grateful for that situation.
Was your pain and your fatigue and other systemic symptoms, were all those just really low at that time?
When I was on Humira?
Yeah, on Humira.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just all the key rheumatoid symptoms, swelling, fatigue, pain, they all sort of go hand in hand. They all reduced significantly on Humira. And then the other great thing was, because it was so effective, I was able to then reduce the other medications I was on.
Yes.
So I didn't take it on its own. It was in conjunction with other meds, but the specifically prednisone, specifically methotrexate, I was able to bring those doses down and eventually get off prednisone, which was great. And so that meant I was able to stop having to deal with some of those more challenging side effects from those two meds in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. I do okay. I do well on methotrexate, but prednisone is tough for.
It can be quite the ride.
Yeah, emotionally, anxiety wise,
yeah,
sleep wise, it's rough. So, yeah, I'm so glad you got to have that remission.
Yeah, and I honestly, I mean, yeah, it was phenomenal. I couldn't even have imagined it was possible when I started taking it. I remember at the time telling a friend of mine, this is so amazing. I feel like I'm aging backwards right now. Like I keep waking up and I can move more things. And I was like, it was great. Yeah.
Wow. And then the subsequent years, I mean, again, and once again, I'm sure this happened in our first episode. I reviewed it briefly, but similar situation that I was in. Also, I consider I was in full medicated remission only because I had like no symptoms when I was on my biologic that worked for me. But then it stopped at some point. I had to then go to this journey of the last 10 years of ups and downs of trying new meds and them working for a while and then not working. And I know you've kind of gone through some similar stuff, plus the pandemic that just made life even more interesting.
That was just, wasn't it? Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
So similarly, eventually Humira stopped working for me. And then I went off to try different things. So again, there was another bit of a bumpy year or so where I was figuring it out, but nothing as bad as previously. And I put that down to the reason, even though I was still getting I had this, once Humira wore off or stopped working and I started trying things like Cimzia and other meds, I found myself in a situation where I was back to having that level of inflammation and pain that's pretty significant, pretty severe. But I was actually, funny enough, able to handle it better. I think just because I had a better understanding of what it was and what some of the options were. Also had better relationships with rheumatologists. I had relationships with other patients. So I just felt like it was much easier to handle than previously. That said, eventually I was very fortunate in that my rheumatologist recommended I try Rituxan infusions. And I started doing those probably about 4 years ago. So probably just before pandemic, probably around the time I met you and we did that podcast.
My gosh, yeah.
And I have done really well on those. So overall they've worked really, really well for me. Not perfectly, I have had a few problems with them, but really they do manage the rheumatoid really, really well. And the thing I like about them is that they happen every 6 months. So, that does really free you up in terms of if you're tied to like biologic injections and you have to keep them in the fridge or whatever, and you have to wait for them to be delivered. There's a little bit of organizing around that.
Right.
Whereas with the infusions, it's quite nice to think there's still some organizing, but it's quite nice to realize that, in between them, you have like a few months where you've got a little bit more freedom or less of that to worry about. So I really appreciate that element of it. And then I also very much like going in to get them because they have a very nice reclining heated seat.
Yeah. Oh, heated. Whoa.
Yeah, my clinic have started including a heated seat.
That's amazing.
So it's like a heated recliner. So I go in, I doze off, and the process is pretty straightforward. You just sit there, having the IV drip, and it's done. So yeah.
That is nice from like a daily management perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also wanted to review one of my favorite origin stories is the origin story of how you founded Grace and Able. Spoiler alert, Sarah, if you didn't know, is the founder of Grace and Able, the compression glove place that
Yay.
we're wearing matching. I have my favorite color, the purple ones.
Oh yeah, I love
Plum.
these. Yeah.
And it's just anyway, now I've set you up because I've said, oh, it's like the best story ever. So now I feel like if I were you, I'd be like, oh no, I now I have to
No,
tell
yeah, I've got to live up to it.
but yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so
sorry. No, it's okay. So tell me about what inspired you to start Grace Enable. And there has been a lot that's happened in the 5 years
there
since you
has been a
first.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so obviously my own experience with rheumatoid was that when I was having those periods where I was having a really rough time, I was constantly looking around for other products that could help with it. And one of the things that I used to use quite a lot was a wrist brace because I had a lot of pain in my right hand and wrist. And eventually I had to wear a wrist brace at my own wedding. So my husband and I had planned this very twirly whirly dance and I needed some extra support. So I went to my trusty, realized it was like this very lumpy, beige, strappy, not great product, although functionally great, but in terms of comfort and attractiveness, not so much. So I redesigned it, I made it match my wedding dress, and I covered it up so I could wear it during this twirly dance without wincing in pain all the way around. So once I'd done that, I took a photo, I shared it online, I showed it to other people with arthritis, and I started getting people contacting me saying, hey, we would love some joint support products like this that are more attractive, that are more comfy, and are really designed specifically for people with chronic pain conditions rather than just, a sports thing or an injury. At that point, I got together with a chap called Trevor, who is a hand therapist, who you also know.
It was the weirdest coincidence that he and I went to high school together.
I know, it's super random.
And hadn't stayed in touch. So when I saw him on your website, I was like, my worlds are colliding.
I know.
But yeah, we're both in Washington State, so it's not
yeah. But still quite surprising.
It's still, yeah.
Yeah. And he as a hand therapist was also sort of interested in this concept about coming up from the angle of, I need my patients to get the medical benefit from these products and I need them to wear them for a certain amount of time. But they keep taking, if they take them off because they're embarrassed to wear them in public or because they're making their arm itchy, they're not going to do that. So we started talking about, well, if people have products that are nicer colors, nicer fabrics, specifically designed for the long-term wear you have with chronic pain, is that gonna be helpful? And yeah, we started designing our own products, wrist braces and compression gloves, and we started selling them, and it's really started taking off over the last couple of years.
It's been incredible. It's so interesting because I remember vividly the first time I was also given one of these we call them in the OT world off the shelf, like the off the shelf, which technically, what your products are off the shelf too, but these were like the old school off the shelf, like just kind of generic, like bulky, ugly, either black or beige. That's the color choices you have. Like, and they're not comfortable, they're not. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm just like, want to take a moment to recognize. I just think it's really beautiful that you took this experience, of being frustrated, or, well, first of all, you took lemons and made lemonade in terms of this lumpy beige. You're like, okay, well, my wedding is coming up. I do not have time to form a company in the next no,
definitely not.
So I am going to and design what I long-term need. So I'm going to design something that works for this wedding, and then how it just evolved into something that's now not only, and sorry, I'm gonna give away, I should ask you a leading question, but my brain's not allowing me to. So one of the things that I personally, as a user, have found helpful about, now to be objective, whether it's yours or other people's braces, when you have an invisible condition, when you put something on like a compression glove, it gives other people in your world a visible sign that
yes, that's true,
of your pain. And have you heard that from the people, the users too?
Absolutely. So we hear, it's really interesting. So a very tiny backtrack, and I'll come back to that, is that I just want to be really clear. Our whole mission for Grace Enable is to empower people who are dealing with these kinds of invisible chronic conditions. So I've been talking a lot about arthritis, but we also have customers who have things like EDS or neuropathy, all sorts of different conditions trigger finger. And so what they have in common is they usually have some kind of long-term chronic condition. And so we hear really interesting and different things. So we have a group of people who absolutely want what you've just said. They want people to see that there's something going on, and they're not going to grab their hand really hard and shake it, or they're going to, recognize that they've got something happening. We also have a group of people who want the opposite. They want to super blend in, and excuse me. And what they want is they don't want people saying to them, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What have you done?" Because they have to hear that day in, day out. So one of the things that we try and do is offer options like that. So we have some things that are brighter colors, and, we have some things that are darker colors in the middle. So they're still, colors like this, and we've got a blue color and some navy blue type color where they're tasteful and and they look nice, but they're a little bit more toned down. And then we've also got some colors that are more in line with different skin tone shades, so people can really blend them in if they want. And and then that way we can cater for the people who want to make it more obvious, and the people who really just do not want anyone commenting on it at all.
What's it like to not want attention from other people?
Well, I personally quite like not
I know
it.
you and I are a good team. I represent the two ends of the spectrum.
But no, I mean, we like I say, we have customers across the spectrum of that. So we have people who are like, I want to be proud of what I'm dealing with, and I'm going to go for like, I don't know, we used to have, well, we still have a little bit like a very bright pink color. I want the bright pink thing. And then we got other people who like either want the black or the skin tone. So it just depends on the person. And then I have people who mix it up and just depend on how they're feeling on the day, right? People feel different moods, different days.
That's so true. And it definitely, now that there's been more in-person events, like for example, I will sometimes wear actually a slightly more noticeable brace on a day where I'm going to be having to shake hands and stuff like that, just so it's not mistaken for being something that's like quote unquote merely like a aesthetic choice. So sometimes people think that this is like
like a normal glove type thing.
Yeah, which is great, but I want it to be clear, like, please don't squeeze my knuckle, please don't.
Well,
and I also usually say gentle, please. Like, take their hand.
Well, let me run this by you, Cheryl, because I was chatting with someone about this. So we were thinking we're doing a new run of wrist braces soon, and I was actually looking at, there's a fabric I can get that's like a really bright orange color, and I was actually considering doing like a bunch of them and just calling it "Don't Shake My Hand" orange.
Oh, I mean, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Or I was actually thinking like a buzzer. This is the OT in me. Like, a buzzer that, like, if they squeeze beyond a certain amount of pressure, you've exceeded your amount of tolerable pressure. Yeah,
that would be great. Maybe if it gives them a little shock, so they go, "Oh,
yeah." And I remember, I think it was the first episode that that you talked about that being an issue with you, because you were working.
Oh yeah.
But and I think right now a lot of the work that I'm doing is in the chronic illness space and the healthcare space. So luckily for me, it's, even if I'm in an in-person event, it's like most people have it like it's a rheumatology conference. In some part of their mind is this concept that like maybe squeezing people's fingers is not the greatest idea.
Right.
Whereas if you're in the corporate world, they don't necessarily think of it. So, but back to the overall idea, I love that how you identify the different audience members or, customer types that you have. It's really, and the same person might want something different each day, depending on the context of their life, and they might switch them out throughout the day. I love that. I personally bedazzled my Grace Knit black gloves for the Taylor Swift concert.
I love that.
And I got lots of compliments on those. And and it's also great to clarify that these can be, used for any cause of chronic pain, like fibromyalgia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or or arthritis, or just maybe an old injury that just never healed all the way. A lot I think about so sorry to a random example, but why do I want to say Jimmy Fallon? I was trying to say Johnny Carson. I'm like, nope, he's dead. Jimmy Fallon had an injury to his ring finger.
All right.
Yeah, he got his ring. Anyway, he had his wedding ring got snagged in something and really caused like a big injury to his finger.
Oh,
And
wow.
sometimes
Okay.
those kind of injuries, they don't heal all the way, and you might have some chronic pain like in one finger. There's just so many reasons you might wear these gloves. So it's not just arthritis. But yeah, I would love to hear more about, you said there were some new different shades, because I do know that like from like a diversity and inclusion standpoint, a lot of times if people think about like a quote unquote nude shade, like that's the skin tone shade, but it's like Caucasian, so tell me more about this.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the biggest requests that we had for a really long time was, can you do a skin tone, and I'm putting in quotes, a skin tone nude shade? And I really didn't want to just offer out the classic beige, because I really felt, I often call it the skin tone shade that doesn't match anyone's skin tone, because there's a very, and I was like, let's not just do beige. So what we wanted to do was just offer some different colors that work for different skin tones. And so we are about to launch our new range of like nude/neutrals. So we have 5 shades coming that are all going to be coming now, basically. We have one I'm calling tickled pink, which is a nice pink color. We have just a standard black color, which is often popular, but we also have a cocoa brown, which is a deeper brown color. We have a cinema brown, which is a mid brown color, and then we have a sandy beige, which is, like it sounds, a lighter sort of sandy brown color. And the idea is that if you are looking for something that is a bit more blendable into your skin tone, you hopefully could find something in that range that works. If you are just looking for something that's like just a nice neutral color, that's maybe going to go with, like a suit jacket or something like that, you're probably going to find something that works in that range too. So yeah, we really wanted to offer that. And in terms of developing those colors, we spent quite a while looking at different products and that offer skin tone ranges, because we wanted to offer colors that we thought would work. And one of the things we looked at were things like I think they're called true color bandages. So these are band-aids. Yeah, and we actually had a chat with some of the people there about how they chose the colors, and took some of they were very, very kind and generous, and gave us some great information about how to go about it, so that we found good shades that should work for people. Yeah. So we're excited to get them out there.
Yeah, I think it's really great. As I've done more like photography and stuff like that, you really do it. And most of the time I like the idea of wearing the ones that stand out. For me, it's just fun. But there definitely are times, like maybe giving a professional talk or something, where you definitely you might want the focus to be not on,
of
taking
course,
time thinking what's on her hand or why is that there, something like that. Or for whatever reason, just liking it better, liking the color better because it matches your skin. I love that. It's so much more, it's more inclusive, to different, to everyone's different experience. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see. Those are they for sale yet or no?
So we have soft launched them on our website, and we are going to be doing like bigger launch. So they're coming in October. I don't know exactly when this is going to go out, but yes. So mid-October. So maybe they might be on sale for when your podcast airs.
Yes. Yeah. So by the time, well, I'll definitely have links to, in the show notes, as always, to the stuff that we discuss here. So including the Grace and Navel. And I think another thing that I'm thinking the audience listening, or the listeners, might be wondering is, and I'm sorry, I didn't prepare you for this question, so feel free to, if you don't want to answer it. If it's a simple,
it's all right.
It shouldn't be, it's not incendiary or anything. It's not like, who are you voting for in the election? No. What's it been like for you running your own business while having RA, like
Yeah,
starting and
that is a good question.
yeah,
So, yeah, great question. So one of the reasons I started this business was because it was so hard doing my old job with RA. Things like commuting. I used to have to, the travel involved in going into an office was very, very difficult. I have a lot of problems with my knees. I have a lot of problems with my hands. Even when I'm on good meds, I still have a lot of knee
yeah,
problems. So that I was finding so difficult. So being able to set up a business where I can work from home has been huge. And I know attitudes to home working obviously have changed over the last few years, but for a long time it just wasn't really something you could do very easily. So that has been very positive. But I am always very aware of having RA and having to think about, pacing myself and managing things. And, when you're running a business, that doesn't always go together very well. So the things I do are, first of all, making sure that I plan ahead a lot, particularly around infusion times, because not just the day of the infusion, but also for a couple of days afterwards or even a week afterwards, I can feel a bit odd. And, just making sure that I organize things so that there's not going to be any huge demands on my time around those times. But what that means is I have to put in extra time prior, in advance of that. And then I also rely, we're very fortunate in that we have been doing very well this year, and I've been able to hire a couple of people, on our customer support team, social media, and sort of logistical side of things. And I really have to rely, it's really critical that if for some reason I'm having a rough day with RA, which does still happen occasionally, not a lot, but occasionally, that I know I can trust my team. That if I have to say, you know what, I need to just be offline for a couple of hours for whatever reason, that I know they're going to be able to do what they need to do, and that's what's really critical. But I would say that for anyone who is living with any kind of disability or chronic health issue, the great thing is that nowadays, the ability to work from home really does open up just so many options that just weren't there before. I mean, it means that you can start to manage your time in a way that works for you. And, just to give you a quick example, I know myself, and, I am great in the morning. And as the day wears on, I start to get more and more feeble. And, I'm pretty much done by 6 o'clock, to be honest. I'm quite tired. And I know that a lot of that is fatigue with RA. I know that, there's a certain level of swelling and pain and fatigue I'm always going to have to deal with. I say, 2-3 out of 10 pain level is great for me, all of that stuff. And I just adapt how I run things and how I do things. So I put, for example, if I have to have important meetings, I try and put them as early as possible. If I have to, I just arrange my day, honestly, around the way my body works. And that's, running your own business means that I can do that. I'm not at the mercy of, other people's schedules. So I'm very grateful that I get to do this and that I get to earn an income whilst having this condition. So yeah, it's, good question.
Yeah. Well, no, and I'm definitely not asking selfishly. No, just kidding. Because I'm like, those of you who've listened to a lot of episodes know that I've said and a couple of different times, like, I'm working on building a team as well, that I know that's critical for me, because it's not just, it's the stress for me of feeling like the buck stops here. The balls, I'm the one juggling the ball. So I'm working on passing some of the balls of my business to other people to have that's so important. But I also really relate to what you're talking about with designing your day or arranging your day. I'm very similar to you. I'm the best in the morning. Like, if I have something that really needs a lot of brain power, I schedule that in the morning. And then I usually can recharge my batteries if I have like a nap in the mid-afternoon. But if I know I'm not going to be able to take a nap that day, or just a rest, then I know I can't do something like super difficult for my brain, like in the late
And
afternoon.
and I think that's, just sensible to sort of especially when you've had these conditions for a long time, you really know your own body and how you function. And so
Yeah.
it does make a big difference. But one thing I will say is the running a business, even when you get to the point where you can hire people, that buck stops here stress, that doesn't go away. It's just a
Yeah.
different one. You think, oh, I've just handed that off, and then a new thing arrives. So
Yeah,
that
that's
is
true. That's
that's
acceptance.
just the nature of it, I'm afraid. But
But
it does get easier.
that's true. But that's a great analogy to also like the chronic illness and the rheumatoid arthritis aspect of like we want there to be this day like that comes when we don't have
Right.
to
There isn't.
deal with it.
It's
But yeah,
yeah.
it's
And I know, you talk a lot about acceptance on some of your other podcasts and or some of your other episodes, and I think that that's actually the key to it all is you know I'm never going to not have rheumatoid. I'm going to have better times and I'm going to have worse times. But the reality is, I have it. I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. I'm going to have it while I'm running this business. I'm going to have it doing whatever else I want to do. So I have to, like, my starting point is I've got rheumatoid and this is what I need to do to manage it. And then I organize
yeah,
stuff around it. And honestly, sometimes it means I have to say no to things, particularly when there's like, there's a lot of kind of, startup type events, which are all like, let's go to drinks at, really late in the evening,
yeah,
or
yeah,
let's all go and stand up for 3 hours at a drinks event. And I've got much better at saying, actually, sometimes I can do that, but sometimes that's just not for me. I don't want to go to something that starts at like 7 o'clock and goes till 10 o'clock, and I'm going to be standing up for 3 hours. It's just not going to work for me. So I'll, meet people in other ways, and that's fine.
It's like, you've heard that phrase FOMO, like fear of missing out.
Yes.
I've also heard people say the joy of missing out, like
Oh, I like that.
Like,
I never heard of that.
And I think that's so true. And I think especially when I know both of us do some of our promotion of our business online, right? So,
Yeah.
and online, there's no end of the party. The party is 24/7,
Yeah,
right? You could
right.
always be making more content, responding to comments,
Right.
and you have to give yourself, this is me coaching myself because I know you're better at boundaries on social media than I am. But that you have to give yourself an endpoint to say, no more internet today. Like,
Right. Yeah. I think that's it. It's just really, for me, a lot of it just comes back to being, because I have a lot of FOMO. I'm terrible. I go to everything. The joke, I would go to the opening of an envelope. I'm ridiculous, but I have to be realistic. It's taken me like literally 20 years to work this out.
Oh no.
But I have to be realistic. I really do have to pace myself, or I mess myself up for the next 3 days. And, so yeah, it can be hard just accepting that is what it is and it's not going to change. And I want to kick against it all the time. But I know it's worth it in the long run. I am more productive and I am happier when I pace myself. I just need to remind myself that that's the right way to do things sometimes. I'm sure you experienced something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 100%. And something that I don't know if you would call this like a kind of like a CBT, like a reframe, or just something that helps me in those moments is reminding myself that even if I didn't have a chronic illness, I would still have to say no to some things.
Yeah, of course.
Things I'm missing out on because I'm literally a finite being that like needs
to. Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? But because I was this way when I was a kid, I'd want to go to everything. I want to go to every soccer game, every school event. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like realizing that it's not really about the chronic. Yes, the chronic illness is a factor in why on a given day I might have to say no to something, but also it's not just a chronic illness thing. Everyone has to. If you have a lot of interests and ambitions,
that's very true.
Saying yes to Grace and Abel was saying no to maybe. You probably had 20 business ideas, knowing 20 different ideas that you could have done. You kind of at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to decide what the prioritize, you have to be able to prioritize things and work out where your time is best spent. And that is true for everyone. But yes, absolutely. For people with chronic health conditions, it's even more critical because we have less energy and time and all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is totally relatable. And I know a lot of people listening are relating too. And before we go to the rapid fire
Yeah.
questions, I love you painted a very vivid picture of like how you manage, running your own business with RA, working from home, pacing yourself. Is there anything else you do on a daily basis? In addition to wearing the gloves, of course, for pain, reducing pain and swelling, are there any other tools in your toolbox you'd like to share? Whether that's, taking a hot bath when you're stiff or a cold pack when your hot joints are hot and inflamed, or any exercise, lifestyle, anything else that you do you
Oh,
want to share about?
I do all sorts of stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
very happy to share the things. These are the things that work for me.
Mm.
So first of all, I do try to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. I don't know if I'm always successful with it, but and I do it in a very, I'll be honest, very broad sense, which for me
Yeah.
boils down to trying to avoid sugar as much as I can and carbs where I can, although not cutting them out completely, but I do try and reduce sugar because I know obviously it's an inflammatory thing. And I do try to follow a kind of broadly healthy Mediterranean style diet with lots of fruits and veggies and things like that, because I know that those are things that can help diet wise.
Hmm.
I also don't really drink alcohol very much for the same reason. I definitely notice that if I drink more, I tend to flare up more.
Mm.
Um, Similarly, I practice meditation and gratitude every morning. I definitely find that helps me manage stress levels, again, because stress tends to
Yeah,
spike
for me.
RA for me. So that's helpful. And then I have all sorts of tools and gadgets and bits and bobs, including TENS machines, what else? Yeah, cold patches, hot patches, compression things. Um, yeah, you name it, I've got it in a cupboard. I actually have a cupboard with a pile of stuff in. And then alongside that, I have, bits and bobs, particularly in the kitchen. Like jar openers, or I've got honestly, I've
Yes.
got a drawer of different things like this, can openers,
Me too.
all the
No, it's
tools and
great.
gadgets, because otherwise, if I don't have them, I'm stuck. If my husband's out the house, I'm like, how do I get into anything? I can't open
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I have all of that kind of stuff. And over the years, I've just found the ones that work and the ones that don't. And then the last thing the best exercise for me is swimming, because of
Mm.
how much my joints are supported in the water. And one thing I found works really well for me is when I switch between cold water and warm water. So what I
Yeah.
try to do at least once a month is get to a situation, whether it's like a spa or something like that, where I can go in, like a hot pool and then into a cold pool, and I literally just hop between them. And I really find afterwards that doing like whole body kind of contrast dip
Hmm.
really, really helps. So for me, I go to a Korean spa. I won't get into it too much, but where they have
They're
that, like
amazing.
different heated
Yeah,
pools,
yeah.
and I treat myself once a month, and I just do that. I just hang out there for a few hours in the different pools, and I find it has a really, really, I definitely feel much better afterwards. It really helps to reduce inflammation for me.
That's amazing. I love that idea. I never thought about going to the Korean spa for that specific reason, but now I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna ask you questions about that offline.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
can
yeah.
recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just was thinking of a fun content idea. It's like a show and tell, like what's in your
Oh,
arthritis
yeah.
toolbox, and like Sarah like opens the giant cupboard,
And it all falls
like
out.
yeah, yeah, that's how, yeah. At this point now, I have so many because there's things that I've bought that I don't actively need, like child-proof magnetic child-proof cupboard things where I'm like, oh, I could have used this, 10 years ago, but I'm gonna try it out to see how arthritis friendly it is.
Right.
So I have even more, I have the stuff that I actually need on an everyday basis, like the gloves and like, the arthritis friendly scissors,
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. But then I
Yeah.
also have additional, like as an OT and patient educator, like, let me try this, let me try that. So
Oh, and
it's,
I'll do
yeah.
one thing I've just remembered is in the kitchen, I just because I have no relationship with this brand at all, but I love an Oxo Good Grips
Oh,
product.
yep.
The
They are
best.
good grips,
Like,
good grips.
so helpful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the Good Grips products. I've got quite a few of those as well in the kitchen. So yeah,
yeah.
really rely on those.
Yeah, they're not only wide handles, but they kind of have some nice texture too. Well, this is so great. And yeah, when I first had you on the podcast, again, you were my very first guest. So I think I I didn't have the same set of, I call them rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I ask them to everyone now because it's a nice little ritual way to like kind of start wrapping up the episode, and also it's fun if you're a listener. At least when I listen to other podcasts, I like hearing sometimes like the same different guests answer the same set of questions, if that makes sense. So you can just see. It's just fun. So the first question: what are some of your favorite or best words of wisdom to somebody newly diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis?
Yes. So I would say if you've just literally just been diagnosed, the first thing to do is just take a day and breathe, because it can be it can be quite overwhelming to receive that diagnosis. Um, and also you just want to get a bit of time to process what you're hearing,
Mm,
and not, just dive into either, just take a bit of time to process it. And then my next thing would be to get some information. So one of the great things now is that there are so many places where you can get information, very different from when I was first diagnosed and got that terrible leaflet.
yes.
You can you
Let's
can
ritual
find
burn that leaflet someday.
I wish I still had it. I
Yeah.
would. But things like this podcast, obviously there's so many,
Mm.
there's Arthritis Foundation, there's AI Arthritis, there's so many different places you can go for information from really reputable sources. There are plenty of other people out there who are patients and medical professionals sharing information. So as long as you're going to somewhere that is pretty credible, I would strongly suggest going in there and like just gently starting to research it from some of these places. And also, remember that there are patient groups, there are plenty of other people who have been in your shoes and are 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road from where you're sitting now. And
Mm.
those people are usually very, very happy to share their experiences and information with you. And also lots and lots of support and empathy, because, all of us who've been diagnosed with any kind of serious chronic condition, we all know what it feels like to be in that spot. And it can
Right.
feel scary and overwhelming, and you don't really know what's going to happen, and suddenly your life's going to change and your plans might be different. So we all had that experience. So I think there's, be aware that you can tap into those people who sat in that spot and are able to share some tips.
I love it. I second all of those. Do you have a favorite book or movie or show that you watched recently or read?
Yes. So, TV shows, I'm going to actually pick two TV shows I've been
Okay,
watching recently, and they're both British and set in London, where I'm
of
from.
course.
So, one of them is a TV show called Industry, which is
Oh.
about finance professionals, and
Mhm.
I kind of like watching it smugly because I no longer work in the corporate world. So I have an extra layer of enjoying it, but it's a
You
great show.
fools! No.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I love it. It's a great show, full stop. It's really full of
I've
all
heard
sorts of
good
stuff.
things.
It's
It's on my
brilliant. I
list.
love it. And then the other show I really like is a show called Slow Horses, which
Yes.
is about some incompetent spies, and it's got Gary Oldman in it, and it's also set in London, or in the UK. It goes all over the place. But yeah, I love that. It's just a really fun show and quite funny, and bit of a thriller aspect. So yeah, I've been enjoying those recently.
That's awesome. We just Charlie and my son and I just finished the audiobook version of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Oh,
which
love
was
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was read
brilliant.
by I believe it was Stephen Fry who was the author.
Stephen Fry. Yeah, yeah, he's
So
great.
great listening to
Yeah. Oh,
that.
fantastic.
Obviously it's based in space mostly,
Did
but a
uh
little bit
did
of it's in London.
did Charlie like it? Does Charlie enjoy it?
Loved it.
Oh,
Loved
that's sweet.
it.
Yeah.
Just great humor. So yeah, I'm just good. I'm adding my tip there. And you talked earlier about, that you do practice meditation and gratitude,
hmm
stuff like that. Do you have a favorite like a mantra or inspirational saying that helps you?
Yes, and I wrote it down so that I relay it correctly. So I'm a big believer in Stoic philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
um, and this is one I looked up some of the stuff from Marcus Aurelius, and one of the things he says is you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, which I think is really
Wow.
just a way of being aware of you can only control so much, and there's stuff
Mhm.
that's outside of your control, and actually it's quite good just to be able to let that go and say, all right, well, because some things don't work out. And so that for me, thinking about RA, you know, there's so much I can do to manage this condition, and I do everything that is feasible for me to manage it. And so it's quite nice to be able to let go that if I suddenly get a random flare, I'm doing everything I can to manage this. I'm not going to beat myself up if it happens. I'm just going to find ways to cope with it and manage it, and not be like, not be beating myself up. Oh, I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that. I'm doing the best I can, basically. And I can't always control the way this condition happens. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere and it's bad, and you just have to find ways to manage it. So it's kind of that sort of thing. Yeah.
I 100%. I think the Stoic philosophy is pretty relates in my head, at least, to the acceptance part of, accepting what's out of
Yes.
your control. And I want to shout out also episode 81. Jan talks about her journey with RA-EDS dysautonomia, and she talks in depth about like Stoic philosophy and Marcus Aurelius too. So
Oh,
I
okay.
I just have to, I try to like shout out other
Oh,
episodes
interesting.
people might find
Yeah.
interesting. So if you want to learn more about that, that's a great one. So yeah, extremely important. Well, and then the last one, this is a little bit hard to answer, but what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with rheumatic disease?
Yeah. So I think thriving is just being, going back on the things we've talked about, being honest with myself about my limitations and realistic, yet still finding creative ways to have fun and enjoy life, and find ways to do the things that I want to do in my life. Um, I'm not big on the whole, oh, I won't let it stop me, I'll overcome it
Yeah.
kind of stuff, which I'm not knocking that. But, for me, that's kind of setting myself up to fail, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think it's, for me, living a good life with RA is, just accepting this is just one part of my life. There are many other parts of my life. And if I manage this, I can still pursue other things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
I,
it's really just about accept the limitations and make the most of the rest of it. That's my way of looking at it.
I love that. Yeah, it's such a subtle shift, but it's really about living in harmony, I would say, with your condition rather than making your whole life revolve around like overcoming it or beating it. Like,
Yeah.
let's beat arthritis versus, okay, we have this, we can live with it, you
And
know?
then you were saying about lemons and lemonade.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been amazing about an unexpected benefit of having rheumatoid arthritis. I never thought I would say that this is that it's done anything good for me, but actually, one of the great things is that uh, has been connecting with Arthritis Community. There are so many lovely people. We have such a wide community of people, all sorts of different backgrounds, like, just all sorts of different people, different ages, etc. And just being able to meet people with that shared experience and get to know them and build relationships and friendships, to the point where I've even been able to set up a business, to
Yeah.
serve this community. I mean, that's been one of the nicest things, just a really positive, unexpected benefit. And, I am honestly just pretty grateful that I also live in a time when I can access a lot of treatments and medications. I'm grateful that I get to do that. And so, there are some really nicer sides to it. I think I really do appreciate a lot of stuff now that I used to take for granted before I was diagnosed, you know.
Hmm.
So, yeah, there's some good stuff in there too.
Definitely. I relate to everything you said, especially the community. I'm yeah, like who I'm wondering, yeah, what kind of connections would I be making if I didn't have this condition? I think I'd
Sure.
still have a great social life, but
Right.
I've so many amazing people through, advocacy, patient, education and support. I mean, there's just been really, I just got back a couple of days ago from the Healthy Voices
Yeah.
conference,
Very
which
cool.
was brought people together from different disability communities. And it's just been, yeah, I've completely, I'm feeling the chronic illness community love right now. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't touch on?
Well, let me just have a quick think. Hold on one moment,
Yeah, no
just in
worries.
case. There is. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So, one, I'm going to go back to Grace Enable and ask your audience for support. So, one of the things that's really important to us at Grace Enable is, our whole mission is to empower people living with arthritis and other chronic health conditions. And so, everything we do, we really like to talk to people in the community about what they want. So everything we do, even down to when we choose our colors, we don't just
Mhm.
randomly pick a color. We ask people, what colors would you like, and things
Right.
like that. So we always want to talk to people, and we talk to people day in, day out. So my request is, if there's any products that you're interested in, or any feedback about our existing products, or anything you see that we're doing that you think, what, that's great, but what I'd really like is this, or what, they do this and I'm not so crazy about it, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from people who want to share their comments and feedbacks with us, because the more I listen to people in the community, the more we can make products that are going to, have a positive impact. So that's
I love
my
that.
request. Yeah.
And how can they do that?
Oh, yeah, good point. So
Yeah,
probably tell them.
yeah.
So probably the easiest way is to email us, actually. So you can email support, SUPPORT, at graceandable.com.
Perfect.
And yeah, all emails get picked up and I see them all. So yeah.
That's perfect. And I love that. And where can people find you online?
So Grace Enables at graceenable.com, GRACEANDABLE. And then we're also on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
I love it. Perfect. These are all going in the show notes too, but
Yeah.
I always have people say it out loud in case someone's like at their phone or just wanting to just
Yeah.
look it up while I do
Yeah.
that sometimes if I'm listening, like, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to, if I'm like fully launch or something and grab my phone, I want to just like type it in and follow the person. So yeah, well, it's really cool. Like I'm feeling very nostalgic because like
Yeah.
thinking back to, when we first talked and
Yeah.
to give you a shout out, thanking you for your patience because the very again, you were the very first interview I did, and I set up the audio recorder incorrectly, and so we had to do the whole thing again.
I didn't mind.
Yeah, yeah. We were like, okay, well, it's like the first pancake. We got that one out of
Yeah.
the way. Yeah, now it says easier, even though we only live about an hour away from each other. It's sometimes easier just like for both of us to
Mm,
just do it over Zoom, just because like we were talking about earlier, the energy levels and stuff. But also
right.
you don't have to worry. At least Zoom has been very, knock on wood, reliable for me. Like it doesn't, it always records the audio. um but yeah, no, on the bigger level, it's been really cool to see Grace and Able at that point where we talked in 2019 was an idea, and
Yeah.
now it's like this product that's impacting so many people's lives positively. And same with me with Arthritis Life, this idea that I'm gonna have this kind of talk show, which I thought was gonna most and educate people most
Yeah.
on YouTube, and then been able to turn it into like the Room to Thrive, self-management program and
Yeah. It's
support groups.
great.
It's been really cool. So I'm very, we should both take a moment to pat ourselves on the back for doing a good
Yay.
job.
Well, yeah.
Or I'll
I'll pat you. There you go.
yeah, because that's, yeah.
No, but it's great, and I think. Oh, whoops! Sorry, I just accidentally clicked something there. But the last thing I was going to say about that is that one thing I like about this stuff is that there are so many people who have these problems. Not just in arthritis community, but I see in wider disability community, where people are saying, you know what, I need this thing.
Yeah.
And nobody else is solving it, so I'm going to go and solve it myself. And when I look at what you've done with Arthritis Life, that's very much in that vein. You know, we want more education out there and more information. I'm going to go and make that happen. So yeah, love it.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I mean, literally the inspiration for the Room to Thrive, like the self-paced course, is like that pamphlet. The pamphlet is just not enough. And the support group is like that live support along with it. But yeah, you can't educate people on how to manage this condition in like 20-minute appointment every 3 months. It's just not possible.
Absolutely
like,
not.
So, no. Yeah. I'm like, this is not this. I don't think I need to convince anyone that like the current system is working.
Right.
Like, so
for sure.
Yeah, that's my little soapbox. But no, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be able to be part of this, you know, this rheumatoid arthritis and chronic illness community, and be able to, you know, have the you know, to have the inspiration from each other to go out. And we also did, you know, the Arthritis Life Hack Extravaganza. I should put a link to that in the show notes too, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of morphed over the years. But I'll put a link to that. And who knows, we may, our initial, it was all online. Maybe one day we'll do some sort of in-person expo, which would be super cool.
Oh, I would love to go.
That'd be so fun.
That would be a whole other thing. But yeah, seriously, I think having some sort of in-person thing would be fantastic, especially now we're coming on the, you know, the other side of the pandemic, and it's a lot easier. Well, it is easier, not for everyone, but for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, we are no shortage of ideas, shortage on time and energy to execute all of the ideas. But thank you so much again. I hope everyone checks out, you know, all the awesome work Grace and Abel is doing, especially, you know, as both a patient, but also as an occupational therapist. I think it's great that you took this on, because I think a lot of OTs and PTs recognize that there's a problem, but we're like, oh, but it's like too hard to get into the medical device market, or like, oh, well, I don't have time to find a better solution.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, in a way, it's like, it's humbling as an occupational therapist to be like, look, it took a patient to go out there and do this. Like, you guys didn't, or we as a community didn't meet the needs of the patient. That should have been, quote unquote, like, I feel like that should have been available to you. You know what I mean? But the fact that it wasn't, and the fact that you went out and made, it's like you made the solution that you wanted to see. That's just it's just awesome. But I also think it's like providers should take note of that, right? That like patients aren't happy with just like ugly crap that you're throwing at them.
No.
Why are we so like? Is anyone surprised? Sorry. Okay. Other rant. Wow. Newsflash: people like wearing things that are comfortable and don't look ugly.
Yeah, and you know, the great thing is that, you know, there are so many people who are doing this. I'm not the only person who's addressing this issue. Definitely, you know, starting to see, you know, across, like I say, different conditions, we are starting to see so many of these small businesses that are coming at this and saying, hey, I don't like this thing, I'm going to make something that's better. And, you know, one of the big examples of that obviously is, you know, with adaptive clothing, that's really come on a huge way. So I think we're going to start seeing more and more of this. And, you know, I'd really love us to get to a place where, you know, going to get your disability products, I'm just going to call that broad term, you know, you're going to get the kind of like quality and selection that you might get for any other kind of product that's a consumer product. You know, just because it's medical doesn't mean it doesn't have to, you know, there's no reason for it not to be attractive and comfortable. It's just silly it's not, you know.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
Yes.
I can hear your adorable dog.
She's shuffling around.
So, no, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's same with mine.
No.
There's all these funny videos online of people like whose their dogs have started figuring out, right? Like when we're wrapping up meetings, like they're so observant, like they know the kind of intonations. Well, now Teddy's fast asleep because he's a sleepy guy. But I can hear your pups. So thank you so much. I can't wait to get this out and celebrate, you know, celebrate all the awesome work you're doing. And we'll see you on what's 143 plus 2. See you on episode 286. No.
Wow.
We'll do another one before then.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Cheryl. I really appreciate it. And it's lovely to catch up. All right.
Yay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Arthritis Life podcast. This episode is brought to you by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created from scratch to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded course on your own, or you can take the course along with a support group. Learn more at the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I would be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also wanted to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on my website, www.myarthritislife.net. If you have any ideas for future episodes, or if you want to share your story or wisdom on the podcast, just shoot me an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you.